Welcome to Essential Ingredients, powered by NextGen Purpose. EI serves up thoughtful conversations with industry leaders and pioneers who support a regenerative future for our food system. The stories shared by our guests are meant to spark curiosity and inspire informed global change.
Hello, and welcome to Essential Ingredients. I'm Justine Reichman, your host, and with me today is Kate Fosson from Brand Pollinators. She is the founder, and she is going to walk us through what Brand Pollinators is for those of us that are not familiar with it. And then we're going to talk about all things that have to do with mission-driven businesses and food businesses and how to build them and all things that she can share with us. So, Kate, welcome, and thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I love, hearing all the different guests that you have on your podcast and just exploring what people are building. It's just so fun. And that's really why I built Brand Pollinators. Yeah, it's been really cool to just meet founders that are focused on making an impact in the world and then creating products and envisioning what those can do for the future. So when I started Brand Pollinators, I really had this vision of, okay, lots of founders are building companies and they get to a certain stage and they kind of get stuck. And a lot of times it's because they're not clear on that kind of foundational piece of their marketing, like understanding really who their brand is. Maybe they have it in their head, but they have a hard time communicating it to their team or to investors or to customers. And so I really wanted to help support founders in that way. And I also noticed that they would come across a lot of really similar challenges. And I thought, why not connect people to each other to help learn so that we're not like reinventing the wheel and beating our heads against a wall when, another founder down the road has figured something out. So we started Brand Pollinators with this idea of building a community where purpose-driven founders could connect to each other to kind of learn from each other. And then also we provided additional support for people at that emerging stage. So we provided brand and marketing support, and then now we've expanded and provide a lot of other support through our preferred partner network as well.
Wow, that's amazing, and that sounds such a great resource for these emerging brands, and even for established brands, frankly, because as a founder, as a business owner, it can be isolating often at times when you're up there with this vision doing it alone.
Yeah.
So to be able to have a community that you can fall back on, and I don't want to say fall back on, but connect with, so that you can share your challenges, your, the wins, the losses, all of it, and be able to continue to propel forward is such an asset.
Oh yeah. And I mean, that's the whole point. And I think especially during the pandemic, I think people realized how important it is to be connected to others because, all of a sudden we were just kind of holed up and it's really lonely when you don't have somebody that you can talk to. And so I think, at Brand Pollinators, we focus on the founders specifically. And so it's kind of a safe space where founders can connect to each other and have real conversations because it is lonely. And there are things they seem stupid maybe in your head or to somebody who is not an entrepreneur that just doesn't get all the different hats that you're trying to wear. And so it's just nice to have a place where there's people that are cheering for you and, maybe you can find somebody that will help you be accountable and you can help them, or you can learn from somebody that's been there before.
I think it's a great way to support the community. And I'm curious, what is it in your background that enabled you or sort of inspired you to build a community like this?
Well, it's several things, honestly. So I am married to somebody who's active duty military. And what that means is that we move every 2 years. And, of course, there's a lot of other things that come along with the service, but the moving has one of the biggest effects on me because, starting over every time, every 2 years is a real challenge. And I used to love it. I think as the older I get, it's become more difficult, but maybe that's because I've got kids in school now, and there's just so many challenges with, finding all those local resources when you move. But I think that played a big role. When I first met my husband and we moved the first time, I had to quit my job and start a new one. It took forever to find a new job. And so I started pursuing the entrepreneurial route. I became a web designer and I did a lot of freelance work. And then I ended up sort of working as like a first hire for a company that I stayed with for a while, ended up as the COO. And I decided I really liked the business strategy side. So went and got my MBA, and, I consulted with a lot of companies that were kind of at that size, and noticed that there were so many challenges that they were facing. And so, as somebody who moves around a lot and has had worked with different entrepreneurs in different industries and, bigger companies as well, it's really about connecting the dots for me, finding what works for some people and how it could work for others. And I should note too, that Brand Pollinators is, we're focused on impact-driven brands, which have like a social or environmental piece as part of their mission that's really baked in. But it's not all food brands. Most of them are consumer facing brands. And there are a lot of food and beverage companies and founders that we work with. But I think that's another thing that's really valuable about the community, is that you can learn from people that are maybe a little bit outside of what you're doing. And I think it's been really helpful for people to kind of connect, like, one woman founder to another. It doesn't matter if you're, selling toothpaste or selling, jelly, it could be anything.
So what platform do you use to connect everyone?
So this is interesting.
Are you the platform?
Yeah. I'm a platform. It for a long time, it was sort of me as like the hub of that. And I really didn't want to have another place where people needed to go and log in, and, there's enough Slack channels, there's enough forums. I thought, man, I really don't want to go down that road. And so our primary way of connecting with people was just individually through email. And we would say like, oh, this is a great person to talk to, or we get on a call with somebody, we learn more about them, and then we'd send them some more resources. And so it started building, and we just created a founder matching program where we now have like an algorithm that will connect founders to each other based on experiences that they've had and want to learn about. And so that's been really cool. People really love that. And it's something where they can get more individual one-on-one conversations. And so I think for the most part, Brand Pollinators has been built as something sort of a community that's a little more ethereal. It's sort of a camaraderie, if you will, rather than like a platform or a forum. But we are moving towards having a platform where people can have more, tangible results in terms of connecting and having that written down and reaching out to each other. So we're building that now, but it's been a long time coming because I really didn't want to overdo another platform.
I completely understand. And it's hard to build a community. It's hard to, build what people want. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of energy to foster it. It doesn't happen overnight. And it's a lot of work to manage it, to have that community management aspect of it. So that's a whole nother ball of wax.
Yeah, it is.
And to manage it all the time. And then also to manage the whole when people are writing to each other and leaving comments, and to manage that whole billboard and just the whole communication. I mean, years ago, I owned a completely different kind of company, and it's like Yelp, right? Somebody goes to a restaurant, they have a bad experience, and they write something nasty. And, it could have been an off night. Somebody could have been having a bad day. And it's really punitive when somebody writes something like this, when it was, who knows? Either one could have been having a bad day, right?
Right.
So I'm always trying to figure out how to manage. I've always been curious how to manage those things for both sides, because I have empathy for both the small business trying to manage their business, and the fact that people, want to have their voice heard, but equally the impact that it has on these small businesses is so grave.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And I think that, customers have a real, like, word of mouth is so impactful on a brand in a company. So yeah, it can be dangerous if there's.
So let's go back to this for a second. So when you were saying that you vet them, I think that's great, because you want people that are interested in being there, are interesting, want to hear what people have to say, but also have will actively be proactive and provide constructive feedback. I think, I don't know how we make sure it's constructive, but that's the goal.
Yeah, it's
the goal.
I think having it limited to just founders is important for us, because, I'm a part of several networks and communities, and when they're open to anyone and everyone, then I think that's where it becomes more complicated, because, people have different agendas for why they're there, and
sales, etc.
Yep. And so having it focus on just founders really helps to ensure that those conversations are, mutually beneficial for the people on the platform.
So when are you hoping to launch this?
Oh, soonish.
All righty.
Well, yeah, we don't have a launch date yet. We're still looking at some different platforms. Again, I hate to reinvent the wheel when things have been resolved by someone before.
Completely understand. So you built this company, and I know that when we first started chatting, you mentioned you had a co-founder. So I'd love to just talk about that for a second, because I know that when people start companies, sometimes they start with co-founders, they start alone. I'd love to just, you originally started as a co-founder. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? And now you're no longer with a co-founder, you're on your own. How has that been? I mean, first of all, was it hard to find a co-founder? Did you guys just come up with Brand Pollinators together? And, and then when you now are on your own, did you lose a lot of skills, or is this just a natural thing for you to continue on?
Yeah, great question. It's really cool, because I met my co-founder Channing when we were working for a company together. And the day that we met, we hadn't met in person yet. We had a phone call, and we were interviewing her to be the director of sales. And I don't think she knew it was an interview. But, as we were talking, just everything she said, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this person. Like, she's awesome. And I was literally like writing hearts in my notebook next to things she had said. And I was making notes. And so when we met in person, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. And we hit it off immediately. We really jived in our views about the world and about business. And we were just so energized by working with smaller companies. And so we knew right away that no matter what happened with the company we were at, we were going to do things together. And it happened. I mean, within a year, we had both left the company at different times, but we stayed in touch regularly, and we kept talking about what we could do. And that, that idea of Brand Pollinators we came up with together. And it was so fun to build together and to have somebody, to work with and to bounce ideas off of. And we really feed off of each other well. And so whenever we would be talking with a client or, really anybody we talked to, we both had things that we could add, and we balanced each other out really well. So it was really awesome to have a co-founder. And things don't always, they just don't stay the same. Things change and circumstances change, and it's unfortunate that we couldn't continue to work together. But I mean, she's still one of my really trusted advisors, and she definitely helps to keep me on track sometimes. It is a lot harder when I'm by myself running things. But I've learned to build up a network around myself of other mentors and advisors that I can trust and count on for advice and support. And Channing is still a great friend, and we still do a lot together and keep in touch. And so yeah, it's nice to have that. But some of the benefits of being a solo founder is that you can really call all the shots. Like there's nobody that is having a differing point of view. And so it can be good and bad, but I've found that sometimes when I decide I want to change something, I just do it and go.
Would you consider another co-founder or working with anybody else?
It's possible. I mean, I think that, I think that I would, but it'd really have to be the right person. Channing and I always consider ourselves as like entrepreneurial soulmates. And so, you don't always.
It's a marriage, right? It's like, I always say, whether it's a friendship, a husband, a wife, it's like dating. Yep. You gotta get to know the person, like the person. I mean, friends, all of it. It doesn't have to be
challenges. Yeah, there's challenges along the way, and you have to be able to navigate those, with grace, because you're going to be with them for the long haul.
So what's new and what's next for Brand Pollinators?
Yeah, so we're launching the founder matching. And I think we'll have a platform soon, still exploring that. We like to run a lot of things by the community and make sure that it's things people are going to use. So we've run several pilots and, narrowing in on exactly that.
How large is your community at this moment?
Yeah, we have over 200 founders now. Yeah.
That's amazing. And are they geographically, are they local, national, global?
Most of them are in the United States. There are a few that are international and selling products into the United States. But they're spread out across the country. And it's, I think it's true to that military lifestyle that I've been living with is, there's people everywhere that have something amazing to bring to the table. And so it's just been really cool to be able to connect people across, state lines and even outside the country to learn from each other.
So, given we have founders and we have researchers and we have, people in health and wellness and VCs and all these different people listening right now and watching, what would it, if somebody was looking to connect with you, what are some of the resources you might be able to provide them with?
Yeah. So I think what's been nice about this community is that it's a great place for founders, but it's also a great place to reach founders that if you have a service that you can provide somebody that's building an impactful business and you really want to support that, then we can make really intentional referrals to make sure that, it's like a win-win for everyone, because if the founder's struggling with something specific, they're trying to raise funds or, they need a specific kind of service. And, I've got this whole network of basically preferred partners who, I can trust, then I can easily say, you should totally work with so-and-so. They would definitely be able to help you with that. So I love being able to connect with people that also want to help founders grow their businesses. And for founders, I mean, we send out an email every single week, and it usually includes either awards they can apply for, or conferences they can attend, or examples of, really cool social media content that they could, emulate, or advice on marketing and branding. And then every single month, we also offer a community call that's open to anyone. And we bring in a guest expert. And it's usually a topic that people just really need support on. Last week, we actually talked with an innovation specialist, and we talked about product market fit. And it was fascinating. Nick Budden, he's so knowledgeable, and our community was just blown away. Like, we had so many great responses back from that, and how helpful it was. But we've had, experts on SEO, and we even had a panel of founders who'd been on Shark Tank, and they shared their experience, so that, people can understand a little bit more about what it's like, and is it worth it, what's involved.
And so curious, for people to be part of this community, is there a fee?
Yeah, so up until this point, we haven't charged a fee for people to be in the community. And that's changing, especially with this founder matching that we're rolling out. So there will be a fee, but the weekly emails and the monthly community call are something that will always be accessible to people, whether they're a paid member or not.
So out of curiosity, because you're a founder, how did you create a revenue stream for yourself as you were building this?
Mm-hmm. So we provided marketing and branding consulting to clients along the way. And so that was kind of the primary revenue source for us. But we also can generate revenue through those referral networks. And then, yeah, the paid membership is, we probably waited too long on the paid membership, honestly, but we really wanted to learn what was most valuable for people and how we could really help them, because it just didn't make sense to, we really had to be clear about what the value was they were getting back from a paid membership. But I think we've got enough proof of how the connections that we've been able to facilitate have really been instrumental for brands to kind of get to that next level. So
I think it's a common thing for people to wait too long there. A lot of people, we all want to make sure that we have the right value proposition. Sometimes I think people go after it too early. They get a little aggressive. Sometimes we wait too long to make sure we have enough credibility. So it's finding that sweet spot of when we can finally start to charge, or when we can finally, or whoever it is, go after it.
Mm-hmm.
And say, you know what, we're ready. We have value here, and start to ask for it. And I think it's a really important conversation for people. And that's why I asked the question, because a lot of the founders out there are trying to figure out, how do we integrate the revenue stream here to continue to provide this amazing value that we have here, the community, the resources. It doesn't happen for free.
Mm-hmm.
You spend a lot of time and effort curating those emails, putting those people together, getting the guests for those weekly or quarterly or monthly, talks, and it takes time.
Yep. Yeah. And it's tricky because, we looked at different models of like, oh, well, if we make a connection for you that, turns into something, then, there could be some kind of commission. But in the end, it's like networking is a ripple effect. And, we'd introduce one person and they would introduce them to someone else, and they'd introduce them to someone else. And those introductions, I mean, we introduced somebody to a resource, and they ended up getting on Oprah's favorite things that year.
Wow.
And it was like, okay, cool. I mean, we didn't introduce her to Oprah, but like we set that track in motion and pointed her in the right direction. And, she obviously had a lot going for her and was able to, make the most of it. But that's the kind of thing where, it's hard to track how those connections play out, and what the value is in the long term for the founder who makes that first connection.
Was that when you decided you needed to create a new model?
No, it should have been a really big flag, but no, she was actually a consulting client of ours, so we were already working with her on a consulting project.
So what was the moment you decided, okay, we really need to create a model?
When the 30th person said, wait, how do you make money? No, I think honestly it was several things, really. I mean, people told me all along the way, yeah, you need to be charging more, you need to ask for more. But when members of the community are saying, like, we want to support you, what can we do? I mean, I offered some sessions for free for people that were in the community recently, and somebody just randomly like offered to pay. Like, I didn't even ask them to pay, and they just offered. So I think we're at this point now where people know that what we have is valuable, and they're ready to join, to commit, and we just need to, put a price tag on there and open the
so I think it's time.
Yep.
Well, I'm so glad that we were able to connect. This is a great conversation. I think that people are going to get a lot out of it. I'm so glad you joined me.
Oh, good. Thank you so much.
So if people want to find out more about Brand Pollinators, how might they do that?
Yeah, contact me. No, I'm just kidding. We do have a website, brandpollinators.com, but definitely feel free to reach out. My email is kate@brandpollinators.com. I've been the hub of the community, and I'm sure I will continue to be. I'm also really active on LinkedIn, so you can find me on there as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining me. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And we look forward to talking to you again soon.
To learn more about these episodes and access show notes, go to nextgenpurpose.com and choose podcast. If you like this episode, head to Apple Podcasts or your favorite platform to subscribe and leave us a review. Visit the Next Gen Purpose YouTube channel to subscribe to our EI videocast and give this episode a like while you're there. Follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Next Gen Purpose, and connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram at Justine_Reichman. Thanks for joining us.